Hello and welcome to a midweek video by Decagon Development. I know I've scheduled up sort of Mondays and Fridays as my videos, but this was just kind of in answer to a question by one of my viewers. Literally, I got asked about what development environment I use. Now, that's quite a large spectrum of a question, really. So this may take more than one sitting to really explain. But I'm going to kind of give you my basic overview of what I use, because there is no one development environment that suits all. But saying that, if I'm in Windows, majority of the time I am actually using Visual Studio. That's whether I'm doing a C++, C#, or Visual Basic.NET application. But then again, when I'm doing web programming, I won't be using Visual Studio, at least not the full structured Visual Studio. I'll just use like Visual Studio Code, which does perfectly fine if you're doing HTML, CSS, JavaScript, stuff like that. If I'm doing larger scale stuff, then I will be using Visual Studio, the fully blown integrated development environment for things. But I usually use that for majority of desktop applications in Windows rather than actually web apps and stuff like that. One of my other things for smaller projects and web projects I use is Vim, which isn't necessarily considered as a IDE, but it is a development environment that I use. I use that in conjunction with Commander and whatever thing I'm using at the time. Like say if I am doing a GCC thing, then I'll be using that. If it's just a small little web project and I happen to be using a framework that I use in the console, let's say a Rails application, then I'll either use Vim or Visual Studio Code, depending on the actual situation and the general scale of the thing. Also, it depends what mood I'm in at the time. Sometimes I really enjoy getting into the nitty-gritty and using Vim. I do enjoy Vim as an editor. It's like people tend to say, what editor is your favorite editor? I'd say Vim overall. A close second would be Visual Studio Code for me. I'm not getting into Emacs because I'm not a fan of it. People do like it, and I'm not going to say it's a bad editor. It's just not for me. It's a perfectly valid editor to use. Some people like things like Sublime Text, brackets, and a multitude of other sort of editors out there to play with. So that's kind of my take on the real basics of development environments. That's for Windows. If I'm using Linux, majority of the time, to be fair, I'd be in Vim as an editor and use something like GCC or G++ as the compilers. I do play now and then in MonoDevelop when I'm in Linux, because I do think that's a very valid environment to go in. I wouldn't say it is the best, but it's one I enjoy playing with. I don't necessarily do any work in it. If I'm going to do serious work, most of the time I'm on Windows, which is a bit backwards since I actually prefer Linux to Windows. But it's a case of where the work is. And if you're developing for Windows, most of the time you're developing on Windows. I do enjoy developing Unix environment stuff. I do enjoy low-level programming and getting really down into the hardware. So if I'm doing assembly, 99.9% of the time I'll be in Vim. There is that slight time when I'll be in Visual Studio Code if I'm on Windows, for instance. But I do enjoy Vim. I mean, I do seem to be going on and on about Vim, and it's one of those. I don't want to get into a whole religious editor war over what the best editor is, because at the end of the day, the best editor is whatever editor you are comfortable in and whatever editor you feel fits your project. Because it's a case of preference. It's personal preference at the end of the day. Don't get me wrong, there are certain aspects of different editors that are suited more towards certain things. For instance, if I'm working on Java, I will majority of the time be in Eclipse. I know there are other things. You've got NetBeans, you've got what do you call it now? Intel's hacks platform sort of thing. I forgot what you call that now. IDEA, isn't it? So there's a multitude of platforms. I mean, you've also got JDevelop, I think, JDeveloper by Oracle, which is a very good enterprise IDE. I don't tend to get around to using it so often. I've had a little the older versions I used to use on the old systems and that, but literally, if I'm working on Java or at least a small Java project, I will probably be running Eclipse. If it was enterprise, that's a different matter. I'd probably use Oracle's actual developer tools for that, because they do tend to have some wicked tools too. But again, majority of the time these days I'm working on Windows environment for some reason. I mean, it's just one of those. I don't necessarily do so much in the operating system side of things these days, although I do enjoy it. It's something I really find enjoyable. Again, for development environments, there's that many of them that it becomes the whole whatever you prefer. But me, I find myself, like I said, mostly in Visual Studio Code, Vim, and Eclipse. That's for like smaller projects and stuff. I mean, Visual Studio is for the larger projects on the Windows side. Again, MonoDevelop I don't necessarily use that much. I do go in it now and then. And as far as frameworks are concerned, I've had a little play on Node. I do want to get more into that for the JavaScript side of things, because that is a very strong framework to play with. Well, very strong framework for work as well. I enjoy tinkering in Rails, but again, that's not so much of a popular work thing these days. That's more of a home project thing, or something you want to play with. Because to be fair, now I think Django in Python seems to have overtook that like mad. So it's one of those things. But again, it's all down to preference. My preference tends to go towards, when on Windows, Visual Studio. I know I'm repeating myself here. I'm kind of, you know, and I'm rambling quite a bit, so I might end this soon. But I just wanted to give a general overview. So another tool that I do want to talk about soon is Git. I really do think it's a really good version control system. It's not the only one out there. There are a lot of version control systems out there. It's just that's the one I actually use. There's stuff like CVS. That was like, I used to use that when it was on the Amiga. That was a really good system back in the day, but it's got that many problems these days. It's very arcane. Some people still use it. Don't get me wrong, it's not the worst thing in the world to use. It's just there are better things out there. And in my opinion, I think Git is one of the better solutions for version control. I know, again, I don't want to get into a whole religious discussion about what is the best version control system out there. You know, that's again down to personal preference. I believe that, in my opinion, Git, but that's just my opinion. And at the end of the day, everybody's got an opinion on what they think is the best thing, and that's just mine. And since I did get asked what I use, so I'm just listing off a few things I actually use. There's a few things like I still use Putty now and then when I'm on Windows to SSH into a Linux box or a Unix box. I don't tend to use BSD this much, a lot these days. Can't even get my words out. I tend to end up on Linux if I'm on a Unix-based environment these days. I used to always be on BSD or True64, and DEC Alpha systems you'd be on like the Spark, Solaris and stuff like that. But nowadays it seems to be predominantly Windows and Linux and Mac OS. I enjoy playing around on Mac OS and doing little projects. I'm not someone who really uses the Mac on a day-to-day basis. It's something that I tend to pop on and do the odd little bit and piece. If I need to do like an iOS thing or a OS X thing, then I develop it on the Mac if I can help it. If I can't, I'll do it in Visual Studio and then compile it on the Mac remotely. So there are options out there where you can do different things. If I want to just consolidate everything, I'll shove it on Visual Studio in Windows and then remote compile on the different platforms when needed. Sometimes I've got a couple of compiler slave computers where I've just got them there to compile. So I'll have like a GCC compiler, a G++ compiler, and a few other things. So I don't have to be doing it on my main box whilst I'm working. You know what I mean? It offsets the development stuff. Again, if you guys want me to drill down and go into the in-depths of some of these things, let me know in the comments. Also, if you guys want to see any specific videos of installing any specific development environments, I'm perfectly happy to do that. In fact, I may do some Git videos soon, just as a heads up. That may be one of the things, I don't know yet. Also some things like Commander installs and stuff like that, because that's a pretty awesome console emulator, if you know what I mean. And it works on Windows amazingly, so, you know. But again, if you guys have any opinions, if you guys, I want to know what editor you guys use. And what editor do you like to use, and what editor have you played with? I mean, my personal preference is Vim, but there's loads out there. Some people are hardcore sort of Emacs users. I mean, I used micro Emacs on the Amiga on Workbench 3.1 a little bit. I didn't really get into it that much. But it's up to you guys as to what you think is the best at the end of the day. So I'd like to hear from you with information about stuff like what editors you use, what IDEs you use. Some people like using code blocks. I'm not really a code blocks fan myself, but a lot of people do actually like it. So it'd be interesting to hear who uses like Visual Studio, who uses code blocks, who uses Xcode. That's another one I use now and then. It's more of an on occasion thing when I'm on the Mac. Who uses MonoDevelop? Who likes MonoDevelop? What frameworks do you guys use? Let me know. Be interesting to see. Just drop a comment and let me know what you use, guys. What are your experiences in different development environments? What are you learning now? What would you like to learn, and what would you like to see? Just communicate, guys. It's not that hard. That being said, I'll wrap it up now. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next episode, or the next video even. Incidentally, guys, as a little afterthought, I just thought I'd like to thank all the new subscribers who have subscribed to the channel, and there's been some great response and quite a lot of comments flying around, and I've had quite a few random little messages and stuff, so it's been really helpful with all the comments and the information that I've got as feedback from the channel. So keep that coming, guys. I mean, we've got I'm afraid I can't pronounce your name. I don't really read Arabic, so I think it's Arabic. Yeah. So I'm afraid I can't pronounce your name, but thanks for subscribing. We've got Philippe Parker, I believe. Thanks a lot for subscribing, and I'm sorry, I really can't pronounce your name. Is it Pacinta Milita, or is it? I'm saying that's something to do with military. Milita. I don't know, but thanks a lot for subscribing, guys, and thanks for all the comments from like Crazy Cars. You've commented a lot, Self-War Tech. There's been loads of stuff. So again, thanks a lot, guys, and I keep saying it, but you're awesome. Also, guys, could you let me know if you prefer the videos with the intro, or whether you want me to just get straight into the nitty-gritty of the actual stuff. So, you know, that animated intro, what we've got in some of the videos. If you'd like to see the videos without that, let me know about that too, because at the end of the day, it's for your viewing pleasure, and I don't have to put the intro there. That's not really that mad. I mean, there's plenty of branding on the channel as it is, so, you know. I do tend to keep the outros, but that's just at the end, so you kind of have something that you don't have to watch, but you can. You know what I mean? And also, that's why I leave these bits till the end, so it doesn't have to get in the way of the content of the video. This is more just an afterthought. So thanks a lot for watching the epilogue. If you really like the video, like on the video thing, it's got a little thumbs up thing. If you enjoy the video and you think, okay, I want to subscribe, I want to get the latest content as to what this guy outputs. If that's the case, remember to hit that subscribe button, and if you hit the subscribe button but don't hit the bell next to it, what happens is you don't get the latest content, guys. So remember to hit that as well. And if you want to be seen to be subscribing, remember to make sure that your subscription is set to public. Otherwise, what will happen is you won't get a shout out on the video end of the day, because I don't know you subscribed. All I know is somebody subscribed. Okay, so again, thanks a lot for watching the epilogue, guys, and I'll see you in the next set of videos.